Now, alright, so we're starting about 10 minutes late. Anyhow, thanks for joining me on this map making class tutorial. If you're just finding me here for the first time and you have no idea what we're doing, you can click on the DadgeNet Mods link down at the bottom, which will bring you to our website, and you can find information on the map making class under the map making class and a link to the files that we're going to be using, although we won't be using all of them today. What you should have, if you're already prepared, and if you're not, or if you're watching this back in the YouTube, we will be archiving all the streams to YouTube after they're done. They'll be up the next day, and you can catch us for all the different things, all the different lessons. But today is basically going to be about setting up and getting yourself organized and teaching you some of the basics of the Giants editor. For today, you're going to need the Giants editor, which is actually, if you don't have it already, it's version 6.03. Make sure you have it. You can type !GDN. It'll bring you to the Giants Developer Network website, and there will be a download link for that. Hopefully you already have it installed. My mods folder switcher program, which also has a link to that as well. There's a command to get it, just !switcher, or you can get them all as I said, on the website. And Notepad++, !Notepad will bring you that. We're going to use a default map that I got off FSUK, which is a blank starter map that pretty much has everything set for a flat landscape, and he's also included some new foliage types and stuff, and the stuff for the chop straw mod as well are already built into the map, so if we want to do the chop straw later on, it's already there. And my mod folder switcher program. Now when you get the mod folder switcher program, to set that up, you're just going to want to extract all, and I already have it, but basically you're going to, here we'll go ahead and I'm going to copy and replace, and as you notice with it's not appearing on my desktop, but you're going to have these applications here, and you're going to want to run the setup.exe file. Now this is going to make it easier for you when you're switching between mod folders to keep the map you're editing separate from the games you're playing. And what we're going to do, once you have it set up, you should get a little red icon like this. Put the shortcut up on your desktop somewhere. And right click on my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder. If I can see new folder, and I'm going to name this map class for me. You can name it whatever you want. And if you notice these little boxes I have up here, these, whoops, my folder disappeared. This is not my actual desktop. My actual desktop is over here, and it went over here into this map class. I'm going to put it right there. Take your map, starter map, drop it into your folder, and I'm going to use, I use WinRAR, and I'm going to extract all, which will put the map into my folder, all extracted so we can access it easily. While that's extracting, if you notice these little boxes I have, this is a program called Stardock Fences, and basically it's a really cool way of organizing your desktop into places. You actually can quickly draw a new fence on the desktop, create a fence here, name it whatever you want, like downloads, and there's several extra features built into the fences which allow me to, new images currently go to pictures. It's already set up to a pictures on my other desktop, but I can send new folders to this fence, and if I clicked on that, any new folders I create would automatically appear in here. It's a cool little program, and actually exclamation point fences helps you keep a very nice organized desktop while we're doing this here. Once you have the sample mod map extracted into your folder, you can delete the zip file because we're not going to need that anymore. We're just going to have an unzipped copy of the map, and I'm going to name it to whatever map name you want to choose, which I think we'll do this as map class. I'm going to name it, but if you have a name for your map that you want, just name this folder and you'll know which one it is. Once you have this folder created on your desktop, actually I didn't want the outside folder renamed. That happens sometimes with this silly program. Alright, it's the same name, that's right. Silly me. Anyway, once you have this folder on your desktop, if you open up the mods folder switcher program, you see a bunch of buttons. Some people, if your map is not installed in the default directory, will ask you where it can find your game settings XML file, and you'll have to browse through that first. But if it's in the default directory where it's supposed to be, you'll come up with this button bar with most of them grayed out and a default button. What I'm going to do is select a folder. I'm browsing on my desktop for my map class folder I created. Clicking OK, and I'm going to name this button map class, and then click here. When finished, you see I have a new map class button. If I wanted to go back to any of my other map folders before I run the game, I just click on the button I want. So I have a separate one for a server. As you can see, I have several. But when I run the game, I want to do my test in the map class folder. So if I was to run FS15 right now, for example, start in career mode, click on an open slot. This is the map, the sample mod map. That is all it's there. If I went back to, for instance, my server folder and then ran FS15, a lot more mods to load up, so take a little bit longer here. If I go to career mode and start a game, I have the Pleasant Valley map in there instead. So it's basically a very easy way to keep your folders organized, and if you're using PV15 already, you know that we recommend you to run it out of a separate folder. And that's pretty much the way we do it. Now for Giants Editor, we're going to go, you should have Giants Editor 6.03 installed. What we're going to do in your map class folder, open up your map, and in the map folder, you will see a map 01 icon. Any of the map 01, or it may be named the map that you're using, but in this case, that's called an i3D file. And in order to load the map, the starter map, we're just going to double click on that. If you have several versions of Giants Editor installed, like I do, 5.52, a couple different versions, you'll get the pop-up window. You're going to want to choose the 6.03. The reason why I still have 5.52 is for converting FS13 mods. I have to load them up in there and export them into separate files and then bring them into the 6.03 version. But we're going to click on the 6.03, or you already went directly to the 6.03 screen. If you're not using the mods folder switcher, then you're going to want to somehow, you're going to have to clean out your, if you're only using your default folder, you're going to have to clean out all the mods in your folder before you, and put them somewhere else, and then bring them, work out of your default mods folder, which is fine. This just makes it a lot easier. The reason for keeping the map separate from all the other mods you have in there is so when you're working on it, you don't have, when you pull up this window, you'll see errors appear. And also when you check your log files, you'll know if your map has errors. And the other mods that are in that folder could very easily be throwing errors and kind of mess with you. So I recommend trying to keep the map you're working on and any necessary files for that map to run in a separate folder when you're working on the maps. It makes it very easy. When you first start up the Giants editor, you are going to be brought into the map screen, and you'll see this person that created this nice map has a whole bunch of stuff stuck in a corner and lots of blank landscape. First thing to learn is to moving around can be very tricky if it's your first time. And if I can get this to work right.
Uplift buffer disconnected.
Basically, you're going to move around, you want to hold your left Alt key down, and if you take and hold your left mouse button down, you will notice I can spin around wherever I move my mouse. That's the direction I'm looking. When I'm holding left Alt down and holding the left mouse button down, I can look in any direction. If I were to, say, set where I want to go and then hold the right mouse button down and move the mouse upwards, it brings me toward where I'm looking. Down, it brings me back. Left and right just goes in and out. If I was to hold both buttons down, I can move around below the terrain, above the terrain, and sideways. But the right mouse button helps you zoom in and zoom out. Now some of you may also be moving a lot slower than I am. And that is because down here there is a nav speed, and you can see where it says plus and minus. If I move down to, say, you guys might even, I think it comes in at 5, I can't even remember. The nav speed, basically holding Alt and the right mouse button down again, you can see now I'm not moving as far with each mouse stroke. I'm just going a little bit, which gets to be a pain in the butt, especially if you're working on a 4X map, and this is just a single. Goes much slower. So if you use the plus and minus key on your keyboard, for starters I would suggest somewhere around 50. I go a little bit higher, 75. If you're working on something more detailed, then you're going to want to probably knock it down a little bit, but 50 seems to be a good starting point. If you went really high, up to, say, 130, now one stroke of the mouse has me zipping across the whole map very quickly. So getting used to these controls is very awkward at first, I found. Just got to remember to hold the left Alt when you want to move, left mouse button to spin where you want to look, right mouse button to zoom you in and out toward the area where you're looking, and you can move side to side or up and down with both mouse buttons pressed. Next, we're going to go through the windows. When you start up, I'm hoping this is the way the default Windows setup began. You have a scene graph. This is where all of the items that are in your map are kept. Down here we have the user attributes window, and over here I have an attributes window, and the scripting window down here tells us what's going on. These windows can obviously be disconnected and moved wherever you want. If you load up a map and there's any errors, it will show you in the bottom scripting window, so I like to keep that open. In addition, if you click the Windows tab, you will have the scene graph, your attributes, which we already have open, user attributes, and for now I always turn on the terrain editing, and I actually put it over here underneath this one here, or above it, but I like it below it. if I can get it to snap to below it. There we go. And those are the 4 main windows that you're going to be using most of the time, so those are good ones to have open. Now, by clicking on any object, let's take the BGA here for example. If you left click, it's going to highlight the object, and then if the object has any user attributes, they would be here. Regular attributes are here, which tell you where the X, Y, and Z tell you where it's located. If I was to move this a little bit left on the X-axis, by clicking on the yellow arrow, you can slide something around. The blue arrow will pull it forwards and back using left click. And there's a green outline right here. We can spin an object around on the Y-axis. You can also spin it with the blue axis like that, but if you get like that, you always have the undo button to put it back flat. Just a way to move objects around, and you can see the location of those objects is located right there. Rotation of the object is changed when I rotate it by just dragging the arrow in circles. Visibility of the object, basically, you can hide an object on the map by clicking your visibility off and back on. Clip distance is important. That is a setting where, we'll give you an idea, I'm going to hold my Alt and move back from this object. Here, let's unselect it. We'll keep an eye on the BGA, and I'll move away, and you can see where they disappeared. That is how far it's viewed in the distance, and when objects are on the map and set to view at a very high distance, that means everybody has to load in. For instance, we'll change it to a 2000. That means that everybody that's within 2,000 meters of that object has to load it in to view it. So now you can see I have to back up a little bit further. Actually, it's in a folder. Haha. Cow stable is set to 100,000. Let's click on about the folders over here. Items are grouped in what we call transform groups, and this transform group holds several different pieces of the BGA facility. Anything on the top transform group is inherited by the next one that's in an arrow, and anything that's in that one will be inherited the BGA facility setting. So basically, I was clicking on just the bunker silo, but I have a 700 clip distance. I'd have to change this one to 2000 for just this bunker silos to register at 2000. Otherwise, it would only be 700. So now if I zoom out, you'll see, let me select something else, that the BGA disappears a little bit further away. If I change this back to just 100, for instance, when I'm zooming out, it disappears a lot quicker. So that's basically telling you how far away the object's going to load in. And on Pleasant Valley 15, some of the objects are set to near nothing, such as great things to have on a low visibility setting are the boxes on the ground. As you notice, it's set to 150 because people aren't going to see it if they're driving around until they get close up to it anyway. You know, so things like that you definitely want to set to a lower visibility. We do not want the whole BGA, however, to disappear at 100. Getting familiar with all the moving around is going to be a task if you've never done it before, but once you get used to it, you'll be able to fly around the map like I am. I'm going to change that back up to 700, which seems to be a good area. And that's set to the maximum clip distance, which tends to be a issue down the road. A lot of people import mods and they're already at the max, so basically if I was in the center of the map and I had everything set to max clip distance, I'm going to have to load everything all the way around the map, which is something we don't want to do. Your scene graph again is organized folders. This is a camera. That's the camera we are currently viewing. If you want to set up a camera for working on this area of the map, we'll use the default camera. If you go to the Create, you can click on Camera, and we just created another camera. It added it down at the bottom of our group. These groups also are collapsible, so we can close the All You Need group so we can see our camera. And what I'm going to do is switch to the new camera that I just created. Also, if you want to rename the camera, come over here where it says Camera, and we'll put it to View 2 or View something else. And now we named the camera, so we can kind of keep our cameras set to different areas if we want to. When you're done creating the map, I suggest you delete all your extra cameras. You don't need them. But when creating the map, you might want some extras. When we go to View Camera and switch to the new camera we just created by having it, we're already highlighted. My new camera is way over here in the middle of the map. Perhaps I'm working on something in this area. And if I go back to camera 1, it's right where we left off. So it's a great way to work on different areas as well of the map. And you can have as many cameras as you want. I just suggest when you're done to take the camera and hit your delete button on your keyboard and remove any extra cameras. Just keep your starter camera, so less resources. About the user attributes, let's see if I can find something here, such as the BGA. Underground, we see all this wonderful... Nope, the BGA is not going to have any user attributes either. There we go, the bunker silo. Throws up a whole bunch of user attributes that make the bunker silo work. So that's why we like to keep the user attributes window open. You can see that one bunker silo has a capacity of 600,000. If I wanted to up it to 1 million per bunker silo, we just change the capacity number. The compact, all these indexes point to different parts of the, we'll get into that in later map classes, but all the indexes point to different parts that need to be registered, and the onCreate is what runs the bunker silo script. Moving planes, different where they're located. That will be in a future class, but the user attributes, usually any objects that have a bunch of different features to operate will have a user attributes section, whereas the standard attributes pretty much includes your clip distance, your visibility, and if you click on a barn, for instance, let's find one over here. We're on the cow stable right here. You'll get a tab called Rigid Body. This is where you can turn your collision off, and people would be able to drive through your barn without hitting any walls, or turn your collision on. And that's turned on in the main folder, so it affects everything down below in the subfolder unless there's a rigid body to turn that off individually. You are able to do that as well. But if not, they're all under the top folder. In order to organize your map, it's very handy to be able to create your own folders, which would be a transform group. So if I was going to, say, create a section with the lighthouse there in the background, and I wanted to build a whole island with a lighthouse, I might create a transform group, name it Lighthouse. I can then go and I can take the lighthouse, I'm going to cut it here, and I'm going to go down to my new group and paste it into the lighthouse folder. Now basically what that helps with is, if I was to move the lighthouse by the folder, I have it highlighted, you'll see that the lines are way over there. one of the things, best ways to take care of that is to take your lighthouse. I'm going to set the translations all to 0 so the lighthouse now actually appears in the group right at the center of the group I just created. So if I'm on the lighthouse group, actually let's go back to 0. If I'm on the lighthouse group now, it's right there where I want to start my new group. To move objects around the map quickly, such as the lighthouse, if we want to put it over here, you hold your control and the B key down and click the mouse button. You can let them go and then click the mouse button, and there you go. The whole group with the lighthouse in it was placed right perfectly on the terrain, right where we wanted it. We can make minor adjustments to the angle wherever we're going to put it. The other purpose of the groups as well is, say we want to add a tree, which I'm going to just take this tree here, I'm going to copy it. In the main lighthouse group, I'm going to go paste it. So now in the lighthouse group I have the lighthouse and the spruce tree. I'm going to reset the tree to 0 too, so it's over by the lighthouse for starters. We'll go back to the lighthouse, and you'll see it's right on the tree. But with the lighthouse selected, I'll move the tree off to the side. We have a group with the lighthouse and the tree. I can click on them individually to move them around, but the other purpose of the groups are to highlight the whole group, and then I can move the whole thing wherever I want. Right click B, click, it's over there. Right click B, I can put it on the terrain over here. Very easy. Moving objects around. Get used to using your groups, name them stuff. Also, it keeps your map very well organized as well. And for the most part, that is how to use your groups. We'll get into more detail on all the different things we can do with those and the special features in future broadcasts. The terrain editing window. We're gonna do the whole next class on editing terrain. But basically, up here on the button bar you have button here with the up down arrows. If we click on that button, we have a radius on the terrain. Notice the circle I have here. If we wanted to edit a larger place, we can bring the radius up. If we're working very fine detail, we can bring the radius down to a much smaller area. And you can also change it from a round to a square in the brush type. So for instance, I have a square brush. Left mouse button is going to add terrain. So if I was to put the box wherever I wanted to on the terrain and hit the left mouse button, you could see I'm pulling the terrain up. If I was to subtract by using the right mouse button, it puts the terrain back down. Very simple terrain editing. We're going to do a whole show on all these different settings here. Basically, they change how that reacts. If I have these all set to 1, now when I click the left mouse button to add, you notice how much faster it went up and how much sharper the angles were. Same way if I go back down, I could dig a hole really quickly in the terrain with the settings of 1, which I'm going to undo all of that. And let's see, the smooth terrain option gives us we'll go back to square, we're going to add with the add-on, and then if we go to set the left mouse button to smooth, we can smooth it out nice and make ourselves a nice little hill. So for terrain, that's all I'm going to show you right now. You can experiment on your own. Next class is going to be all about terrain. Next button up here is the Terrain Detail Texture Paint mode. When you click on the Terrain Detail Texture Paint mode, you are now using the Texture Layer Painting section. Very basic. We're using the Texture Layer Dirt. You can highlight this box. You can select beach sand, any of the ones that are built into the map currently, asphalt. Later lessons I'll show you how to add your own textures in. But for now we'll do asphalt. We're still working off of this setting here, so we're going to add asphalt with the left mouse button in the terrain section. In the texture layer painting we're going to set to asphalt, and now if I left click the mouse button I am making a nice asphalt pad to put a new factory on. If I was to switch this now to dirt, I can add a dirt pad right next to it. Simple as that. One of the interesting things about deleting a texture, and thanks for the follow, Biohaze 101. If I was to put down grass, I can remove the texture back to grass. However, if I have asphalt here, and say I drew, I'm on gravel now. If I drew gravel on the map, and I was to undo it, it sets it back to dirt. Just one of the things it does. The other thing I wanted to show you is you see this grid lines. I'm pretty sure that you will all have the dynamics. Is that where it is? I can't even remember now. It's been so long. View. Let me see. We got cameras and dynamics, selectable lights, audio sources, and cameras, profile, high. Anyhow, hopefully you have these. I forget how to turn them off, believe it or not, because I always have them. But what those outline boxes are, you'll see that I have in this box here, we'll turn that off for a minute, in this box here I have highlighted 5% asphalt, 13% gravel, 16% dirt, and 68% grass. Within each boxed area you are only allowed to have 4 textures. So we already have 4 textures in this box. If I wanted to try to get beach sand in this box, it's just not going to work. If I was to slide over into the other box, over here, I can get beach sand, but it's just going to stop because I already have 4 textures in this box. Now, you might say, let's see, we want to get rid of a texture completely out of this box so we can put the beach sand in it. We're going to go to set a button to remove, and we're going to set it to gravel, and then I'm going to click remove current layer from terrain chunk, and gravel is gone. Now I can add another one back in. So that's the basics of terrain. We're going to do a whole class on terrain. The next button on the bar, Terrain Info Layer Paint Mode, is where navigation meshes show. And over here on this default map we can see a white area. That's where the navigation meshes are. We're going to get into that much later, so we're just going to turn that off for now. The Terrain Foliage Paint Mode is the other main one. And with Terrain Foliage, we get to go down to this third section, which is foliage layer painting, and we're going to turn it on grass. And if I can remember, we're going to put our mouse button back to add grass. You can't replace. Let me see if I can remember which bit set is the original. 1.6 gives us some grass on this map. It looks like he changed the grass texture as well, which is kind of cool. But we're planting grass on the map with the box by highlighting the 6 button. Let's see what 7 does here on this. It erases it. 5
Cactus belly
is
connected.
an earlier stage of grass. And 4 doesn't do anything as well. But you can experiment with your little buttons. And apparently 6 is where we're going to have our fully grown, just 6, our fully grown grass to plant. And when you're getting into fine areas, you're probably going to want to use a round, smaller circle. And you can paint your little grassy areas. One of the cool things I'll just really quickly show you about the terrain is that in with his foliage layers, he's added several different ones, such as these nice weeds here is under arbust. We just click it. We don't even have to have any other, for these extra foliage layers, we don't have to change anything else other than switching to the name of the foliage layer we want. We have some bushes and the cattails here. To remove those is another interesting thing. What you're going to need to do to remove the cattails is, let's go back to, let's see, what do I want to do? Removing cattails. We got to have cattails. I think we go back to grass. Nope, grass is not being removed. We have to have cattails selected. I never removed his layers before, which are the jonks. And we probably have to deselect the 0. There you go. And then if I right click to remove, I'm removing, it'll just remove the cattails. Each one of them has to be removed individually. So we also put down, which one do we use? Arbust. We unselect 0, and we can get rid of this one again by having the section up here. Basically, I right click and it removes it. It's not even have to be set up here. Anyhow, those are pretty much the terrain buttons. We're going to do a class on each one of them individually. When you're done messing around with your map, and very often whenever you have something, you want to click your save button right up there. It'll automatically save the map in the state we have it now. We'll get into importing objects, which is the little import i3d file here button. And if I was to say grab this billboard, which I already have saved on my desktop, and click open, it puts the billboard as the last thing in my list. I might not be able to see it, but if I highlight it and scroll around, we know the billboard is somewhere over there underground, but I'm going to just use that same method with the Control B and click and bring my billboard over to me. I just imported this billboard with no ad on it, and it's all messed up at an angle because sometimes people create mods and they do weird things like that. So let's turn all our rotations back to 0. Then we'll click on it and put it on the terrain, and there we go. Now we're straight up and we have a billboard in. So that's what the plus sign is used for, importing your objects. And you can also use the undo rotation. It'll tell you when you highlight over your undo button what you're going to undo. Undo translation would move it back a step on the wherever you moved it to. You notice translation marks move. Undo rotation, undo. But whenever you highlight over that arrow, it will tell you what the next step, so you know what's going to happen. Now if I go all the way back to undo, eventually it gets to it's gone. I don't have an undo. But there we are, back to the square one. Get used to your undo, and you can redo as well. Bring it all the way back to where we were. Very good. Let's see what else we have in here. Whenever you're messing around with textures, that's what these buttons here are for. We'll get into that as well. If I was to go outside in an editor and change the your ad could be here to a picture and wanted to see it before exiting the without exiting the map, I just click the reload all textures and you'll see it'll scroll through the whole map down in the scripting window very soon, if everything works well. It's trying like heck. You'll often get the not responding there they go. The not responding message in Giants Editor, even when you're just opening a map, ignore it. I don't know why it always says it's not responding, but we've just reloaded all the textures. So if I had changed that in the file, it would have brought in the new texture. And the scripting window will tell you, it scrolled up every little thing that we changed on the map. Actually, if we go back before I reset all the textures, we'll do another one. When we import the billboard, for instance, we'll bring one in again. The last thing I did in there will show in the scripting window right here. I imported billboard i3D file into my map. If there were any errors in anything you import, it will show up in the scripting window. So that's why you like to keep it open. Make sure whatever you import is error free, and we'll get into correcting some of the simple errors down the road as well. And I'm pretty sure we've covered just about everything. There's duplicating items, highlighting the item you want, or even the whole group you want, for instance, the lighthouse over here. If I just hit Control D, I have a whole new, there's the original lighthouse group, here's the other one. I can have two lighthouses. Very handy when you're making fence and plotting one piece after another. And you got your usual cut, copy, paste commands, if you're familiar with anything. Move to camera means that the tree just moved up to where the camera I'm viewing. So if I wanted to take the animals, so let's see, let's take this road and street section and go to the, where was it? Move to camera. If I back up just a little bit, it actually didn't show because it's in a big group. Here, let's try something else. We'll take the other lighthouse and move it to camera. The lighthouse just appeared where I am, up in the air. Also can be done by going Control. Actually, you can move your camera to an object by highlighting it and hit Control, or just hitting the F key. F key by itself moves you to wherever that object is. So if I select this building that I can see way over there and hit the F key, I'm now right on top of it. Another easy way to move around in the map. Highlight an object, F key, you're there. I don't know why we have a lighthouse floating. So one more time, left control B and click, the lighthouse is on the ground. Change our rotations back to 0 so that we, here, then we'll move it. Control click, we have a straight up lighthouse. Scaling an object, most objects can be scaled. If the rigid body is set to static, you have no problem scaling the object. If it's set to dynamic or kinematic, we'll get into why you shouldn't be scaling those without some added, basically they're objects that are supposed to move, and Giants Editor doesn't like you moving scaled objects. But if you wanted to scale this lighthouse up to twice the size, you just change your X, Y, and Z, and you now have a lighthouse twice the size. If you were really creating a world for giants, you can make a lighthouse 10 times the size, and now we have a weird look. Oh, that's because the scale Z is not 10, it's 140. Now we have a 10 times the size lighthouse. Or if you're making a lighthouse for midgets, no offense to midgets, but you don't need a bigger lighthouse, sorry. We got one for there that's only 2/10 of the size of a lighthouse. So there's your scaling settings. And it looks like, we'll go really quick, we can add lights to the scene, which I do not recommend, except for maybe viewing something that has lots of shadows on it. In order to view, we're going to go to show lights. Now we can see what lights are being broadcast on the map. And we have a light. I'm going to click on it and bring that light source right here so we could see which direction the sun rays, that was the Control B I used again and clicked. We can see which direction that light source is aiming. So we have a very bright light with a range of 500. If you click on the light tab, we're going to change this range to 50, so it's not casting quite as much light. You can change the color spectrums of the light with RGB as well, but we'll get into that again another day. But as you rotate the light, you can see the shadow on the lighthouse change based on which way the sun is reflecting. One of the handy things about lights is if you're working up close on something fine detailed, you can just bring a new light source in, work on that object so you can see it nice and brightly, and then when you're done, delete your light source and it's gone. Audio sources, same way. You click audio source. If you have a WAV file, you can import an audio source and it will look like a little, I don't know if there's any on the map, but we'll check it out right quick. We'll click on audio sources. Over here the BGA obviously is creating an audio source. Audio sources, when they're clicked on, you can see the little speakers. Now that I have them turned on, this is the lumberyard sound. I can move the lumberyard sound over to here. You could see this area is where that sound is going to be heard. That is done by the outer range and the inner range. So if I wanted to cut down how far away people are hearing the lumberyard, I change the outer range or the regular range to 50, and now they can only hear it within that area. Audio sources are pretty simple, but they're very large files usually when you import them if you don't get small audio clips. And there's the loop feature, so if they're in that, they're going to hear that constantly play the lumberyard sound. If I only want them to hear it once, every time they enter into this circle, we would just turn the loop off and they would not hear the audio source. And I usually don't do audio sources on the map or the lights until much later, so we turn them off so I'm not confused. And the navigation meshes show where the navigation meshes are built for the animals. You can see the blue areas. We're going to be getting rid of those, and for now we will turn off the navigation meshes. And that's, well, Bones shows you, actually if we go to the view and we change it to wireframe, you get this lovely view, which basically shows you the wireframe mode in the game of everything. And we're going to turn off wireframe, put it back to shaded so we can see what we got. And you need to have in the selectable lights, audio sources, and cameras selected for me to grab the light source and move it around if this is not checked, it means I won't. If I clicked on that speaker over there to pick up the audio source when I had them shown, I wouldn't be able to move it without the audio source. Same way with lights and the cameras. Cameras are shown on the screen as selectable. Here we'll go view, show. The cameras are on. Where is the camera? It's underneath the train still. I don't see a camera picture. Anyhow, usually there's a camera picture when I click on it. Oh, don't have a camera selected. Duh, I have an audio source selected. So we're going to create a camera. Now if I click on a camera, it's in the middle of the screen. We'll bring it over here. That is where I'm viewing with the cameras shown. If I point that camera, for instance, over to that area there, let's turn that camera, and then let's go to view camera and switch to the camera, and you can see I'm looking over to that area there. View camera back to my other one. But if I had, like I was explaining before, my selectable cameras turned off, I can no longer select it. You won't be able to move the camera. You can still delete it. I can select it in the scene graph and move it, but by clicking on it, I am not able to. That just keeps you from doing something to mess up the map that you inadvertently did not want to do. So
Yes,
that
disconnected.
is just about it for today. Splines, that's going to be your splines. We'll be creating splines for putting vehicles on. We'll get into that as well. And you can create new splines, Control B, click, bring that, and basically a spline is a series where the vehicle would travel on. A series of dots, actually. And if I was to click on, say, the south dot, right here, I can expand it out and make a train track, for instance, put a train on this spline. If I hit the insert button, it gives me a new point, so if I wanted to start making a turn, I could turn it. If you want to do another turn, you want to put a couple in to do a nice loop. Basically, that's the way splines are going to be done. And primitives I don't even use, but basically what they do is they bring in an object like a plane. Now you can learn how to texture these, but right now they're just blank, and you can scale them up, and it's basically, I sometimes use them for like rulers. I make myself a plane and say, okay, I want a building
Jack
to
connected.
be this long or this wide, and I set up a plate, and then I just remove the plane when I'm done. Other windows, particle systems, we'll get into material editing, all that stuff's way down the road. Your animation window, these are all windows that we're not going to use for quite some time, but way down the road after we get the basics, we will show you all the rest. And there's a help button in here too that will give you very limited help as well. So that's the basics of Giants Editor. The basic thing you really want to do is, I'm going to turn my navigation speed back down to my favorite 75 for me. Well, that was good. Stop. You're going to want to get used to these moving around commands. Once again, it's the left Alt key and left mouse button. You are able to spin. You can look up, you can look down, you can look left, look right. And then once you know where you want to head, back over there, it's left Alt. While it's still held down, you can move your mouse, keep clicking your right mouse button and rolling your mouse upward. It'll move you in and move you out. And both mouse buttons will allow you to go up, down, left, right from wherever you're facing, which can be interesting if you're doing that, looking at it like this. So get used to those commands moving around this week. And next Tuesday we will have another session, and we will start doing the terrain editing. And thank you guys for watching. Once again, if you're viewing us in the live stream and you type exclamation point points, you will get accumulating points now in the point system. Right below us, if you missed the original links to start the map making, click on the DadgeNet Mods logo. It'll bring you to our website. Look for the map making class. Any questions you have, just post them there. I will get back to them. You can use the scroll wheel, but interestingly enough, you can scroll wheel in and out as well. I never use the scroll wheel, and that is because I don't have, I use a trackball when I'm doing this. I'm not actually using a mouse. I've just something that I got used to a long time ago. And the trackball doesn't have a scroll wheel, but my little side thing that I have here does, so I can use a scroll wheel. So I just got used to not using a scroll wheel. But yeah, that will zoom you in on the terrain as well. It's another handy feature. And any questions can be answered in the forums. Anybody has any questions, just go to our forums page, look for the map making class. This video will be up online tomorrow. After we're done with the next show at 9 o'clock will be all our new features preview 2.0 coming up. We got some really cool things. Come back at 9 o'clock to see all that. And on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, first class is going to be terrain editing. You guys out there, thank you all for watching. Get your idea for the map you want to create. Kind of visualize what you want to do with your terrain. If you want, we'll teach you how to do rolling hills, steep cliffs, all that jazz next week. And I also wanted to mention, from time to time, thanks for the follow, Mopar. From time to time during these lessons, I'm going to have to get pretty in depth, and I may do an offline extension, and I'll let you know at the end of a lesson if that's going to happen. And there will be a video on the video page, which Stale Popcorn Farts is linked to, I'm pretty sure. And for today, this session, that's about it. I'm going to try to keep all these right around an hour. We're a little bit over, but we started a little bit late today because of apparently my stream key got messed up when I had to reset my password. And any questions, I can answer them there. If you stop in here, I'm glad to answer them live, but I miss a lot while I'm trying to go through and teach you guys these different things. So, thanks for watching. Stop back at 9. You won't believe what we did to the map this week, and I'm going to throw a post up there with a few little hints with this week's updates. And that's about it. Have a good day.